G'day and welcome back to the Shed of Basketball Truth. It is Studio 3 for Ball Don't Lie Australia. Proudly brought to you by the local card shop of Woolloongabba and supported by Trades AU and Dr Electrician, part of the Trades AU group. Now, he's back. He's rejoined after almost a 2-year hiatus from the show. Eric McAlister, welcome back, mate.
Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it. Always a pleasure.
It is indeed. And look, let's jump straight in. I mean, we've got a bit of talk about. We've obviously got an NBL season that's underway, and it's going great guns for a big chunk of teams. Some other teams not so much, but that's basketball. That's basketball. Not everyone, nails it after round 4, and some won't nail it after the end of the season either, but that's okay. Look, since we've seen you on the court at Rip City, there's been a bit going on in your world. Let's start with Brains Magazine. What's the go there? What's the push, and where can people get around what you're doing?
Yeah, look, I don't think it's any secret now, and I've spoken a lot about my own journey in the mental health space, and I've created a business out of it, and the list goes on. And the more outspoken you get, the more people you reach. And one of the editors came across a video, and then led her to one of the articles I'd written, and the list goes on. And they reached out, asked me to be an executive contributor, which I was stoked about. They do great stuff, and it really reaches a variety of audiences, whether you're looking at holistic health, business, mindset, personal development. What I really liked in my conversations with them initially was everything's intertwined and interconnected, and it's not an area that becomes niche, or it's not compartmentalized or anything like that. So for me, it was, not to have a pun here, no pun intended, but it was a no-brainer, and I was, really excited. So I've started that for the last month or so, and I'll be contributing over the next 10 more months.
And you've also been, doing some stuff across your socials and putting out some different quotes and things, and one that's resonated with me, and I'm completely going to butcher the quote, but it's not what you said, but this is what I heard from it. It was the one when you were talking about being in the room. And once you're in the room, what I heard was, you're in the room, don't stuff it up.
Mm-hmm.
Be there, do what you need to do. And that one really resonated with me. And I've been, obviously that wasn't the exact quote, but that's what I took from it. And over the last, couple of weeks, that's been really rattling around in different situations. So thank you for that. There's some other bangers out there as well, but that one really, hit and resonated with me. Now you've also been doing some of your performance consultant stuff. What does that look like if people wanted to get involved in that?
Yeah. So for me, it all began in the mental health space. Like I said, I started talking about it, wrote a bit about it. I had a few people in my network who were athletes reach out, and just for a conversation. There was no business at the time or anything like that. And as time went on, there were more and more people reaching out and continuing to gauge interest. And one day I got to a point where, and this is kind of how I'm wired, I said, speaking about it is great and bringing awareness and all those things, but how can I up my game here, and how can I move this conversation a step forward? And I sat down for like 2 weeks, and I just mapped out every problem I had. I looked at all the solutions and how I grew out of those spaces. And as time comes on, you start to connect it. It becomes a bit of a web, and you start to have processes that can kind of, start in one area and carry over to another. And I eventually was able to measure stress, resilience, trust, and correlate all that into performance. And so, I brand myself as a personnel performance and development consultant. Basically, whether you're trying to understand the scope of your team, of your department, this isn't just exclusive to sports. Whether it's going into schools or corporate businesses, I do quite a bit of that as well. I work across the 4-style personality assessment, very, very similar to the DISC analysis for people that are into that space. And so I take that, kind of helps understand the environment, how to create the correct environment, communication styles, all that kind of things. And taking a step further, and I've looked at the mental health side and where you're more susceptible based on your strengths, and learning how to leverage those things to put the right processes in place. So it's been almost 2 years now since I guess founded the company, but a full year now since being full time and retiring from sport. And it's been an unbelievable ride, and there are plenty of highs and plenty of lows, and trying to figure it out as you go. But it's worth it in the end.
You mentioned there retiring from sport. Haven't missed this NBL One North season. Obviously, you went along. We actually commentated a game there with, of course, John Guana on the game of the week, watching Carly play, and then watching some of these other teams. There's no itch to get back to it, or happy with it for now?
Yeah, look, there's always going to be an itch, and you love the game, and it's having the ability to physically compete with people like that. That's been a huge gap in my life that you're trying to fill, and but my body really appreciates it. My career was marred with injury. My last year, I tore my adductor. I was playing on a fractured ankle without realizing it. All these things are kind of going on, and it's after 15 years of it, you're ready to put that to bed. But I still get on court every 3 to 4 times a week with Carly, and you try to stay fit and things like that. I will say, for anybody who is listening that is coming to that tail end of their career, or getting ready to retire, the thing that I really underestimated, the biggest part of the transition, was the loss of the social factor. You're always around the guys, and during the season, and even in the off season, you're still keeping up with everybody. And once you kind of get removed, that was a big area that was a bit eye opening to me that I hadn't really thought of. So yeah, I guess that's something that people need to be a bit more mindful of as they transition out of their sport.
Yeah, that's some advice I've heard from a few players. One, because it's just night and day. Once it's gone, and you just don't have that shared goal. You don't have that reason to be, and human beings are great at that. When we've got a reason to be around each other, it's fantastic. And as soon as we don't, we almost just don't reach out anywhere near as much. But we still have the basketball, though. Basketball's still great in whatever facet. It's even just watching, it's fantastic. All right, now there is one thing that we definitely cannot let you go without talking about, because you obviously have been doing some scout work with the Dallas Mavericks. Now, I'm sure people are dying to know what is when you're on the books, sent to things as a scout, what's your day-to-day actually look like? How did you get this kind of position? I'm totally envious. I do not have the skill set. Don't worry, I'm not coming for your job. No way they're looking at you and me and going, maybe the chubby guy who never really played at the same level. No. But can you walk us through, how you got the job and what the actual day-to-day look of it kind of looks like?
Yeah, so it's actually a really unique story. When I was if we're going back to founding my business, you need certain qualifications and things of that nature to apply for insurances and things of that. And so I did this, online course where you get broken into rooms, and you're with people from all over the world. And this lady who I was working with, she was in Slovenia, and you know you're with somebody over the course of weeks, and she said, oh, like, my husband travels a lot for work, and that was like the extent of it. She knew I played basketball, and so I finished the course, and like 3 or 4 months later, she sends me a message like, hey, like, my husband may have an opportunity for you, are you interested? And that was the extent of the message. And it's like, hey, yeah, like, always open, like, because I was getting ready to transition out of sports anyway. And um, I didn't have any expectation on this call or anything. And we get on, he's like, yeah, I've been head of international scouting for 20 years in the NBA, and we're looking for a new guy. And so this is back 2021, maybe 22. And yeah, and he was, at the time, they still had their guy out here and covering this side of the world. So I was kind of on a unpaid internship, and a lot of critiquing of what you're looking at and trying to, I guess, adjust your lens and your perspective to what an NBA front office wants to know about a guy, or how you're evaluating changes, because how you evaluate somebody in the NBL one is different to the NBL, is different to the NBA, obviously. And I was always a bit skeptical of it, because I'm like, there's no way that this guy is just going to give me a job. Like, he doesn't know. He hasn't asked a single basketball question, anything like that. But it turns out his one of his really good friends was my first pro coach.
Yeah.
And so I got the nod of approval from him, which was great to hear, because he's somebody that, to be honest with you, I owe a lot to, because I don't play for 10 years professionally if not for him. Because my first year, I wasn't really ready to be not just a pro, but an American import, and the things that come with that. And he was patient with me, and he really helped mold me in that space. So big shout out to him. And so that's how I got the job. And so the last 2 seasons, been full time with them, which is great. And it was a busy off season with, we got to, it's with the Mavericks, obviously. So we got to the championship series. Didn't break our way, but we're right there, and that's the good news. Is we are right there. We lost Derek Jones Jr. in the off season, and the front office is phenomenal there, and Nico and Matt and Finn and all those guys, they've done a phenomenal job to really re-up the roster, and I think we're in a better position than we were last year.
Awesome. So on a day like the Blitz, when you're at the Blitz, is there, how does that work? So obviously for those who weren't there at the Blitz, there was, on the first couple of days, there was very specific seating there for the scouts to obviously sit, watch games. Are you taking notes? Are you looking at film? Is it the sort of thing where you're there in the moment, just watching and then analyzing film afterwards? How does that stuff shake out?
Yeah, I think I have a bit of a unique situation, because for me, like, living here in Australia, I watch these guys throughout the season in the last few years. I'm very attuned to who they are, their sizes, things like that. There's only a handful of international scouts who live in Australia, particularly because of the difficulty of international travel and the long and expensive flights. Most of these guys are coming from Europe or coming from the US, even. So for me, I don't really need the notepad out per se. It's more about, you make some notes in your phone, and when you go back, you write up your reports. And that's been the thing, that the Next Stars program is such a trend-setting move, and the NIL is going to make that a little bit more difficult for Liam and those guys. But what Liam has done has been exceptional, and getting to spend some time with him in Perth, get to know him a bit, and listening to how the whole process works is really interesting. And for my money, it's right on the mark of what you need to be doing and putting young kids in a position to succeed. And you're also giving them a bit of responsibility if things don't break their way either. So it's a really great program. They're bringing some really high caliber guys across, which is exciting when you see guys on a list, throughout the years, and then all of a sudden they're going to land here, and you get to watch them in person. And some of them this year are making a good mark early. So it's the league continues to constantly look forward and stay ahead of pretty much the rest of the world in that space in particular.
All right. And one last question, very quickly, just answer without even thinking about it. Who are the Dallas Mavericks going to take with their first pick next year?
That's not up to me, so that doesn't matter.
I tried, people. I tried. He's too good. All right, then. And of course, if you look at the ESPN list of, how they're drafting, there's already a few on the list and high up. I honestly thought Lockie Olbrook, is a bit further down there, but I'm also, not someone in your position. So, but look, let's have a chat now about the NBL. We're 4 rounds in. We've had quite a good preseason. Obviously, in the Blitz. Most teams, I want to say, with an asterisk for New Zealand, have had 5+ games. Obviously, New Zealand just with the 2 sitting at the top of the ladder with those 2. For mind, I really need to see more real kind of games from them. But if we break the NBL into 3 kind of categories of, say, maybe contenders, those problem teams that are going to be right around the cusp and be difficult to play, and then maybe those, need to see more / this might be a really long season. Which end of the stick would you like to start on? Contenders, or do we want to?
Yeah, we'll start at the top and work our way down.
Start at the top and work our way down. Okay. All right. Hey, if you really want to talk about the Brisbane Bullets that much, all you have to do is say something. All right. Who's on your list? Who's towards the pointy end of the stick?
Yeah, look, I think a lot of people will try to discredit them, but you can't walk past Illawarra based on how they finished the season, how they've started the season, how they looked at the Blitz. They're the real deal. And what Tatum has done there is nothing short of exceptional. And it goes to show what happens when you can get a coach that can get players to really buy in and want to play for you. And that's not a knock to anybody that's been there previously, and it's not a knock to anybody else around the league. But I think it's important to highlight those things, because if we're being honest, a lot of those guys on that roster are second picks to everybody else's roster over the years. And I look at a guy like Davo Hickey. That's a guy, his contract's up at the end of the year. You have to wonder who's gonna throw some money at him and where his heart is gonna lie, and things of that nature. And all those guys are earning it. Special shout out to my guy Wani. Wani is probably the best point of attack defender I've ever been around, and I say probably because I, in fear of forgetting somebody in the past, but yep. Wani just has a knack, and he's still young. He's a kid still, so. It's a collection of guys that are bought in, that have a particular skill, and Tatum is maximizing that. So for me, Illawarra's got to be at the top. I think they are the real deal. The next 2 teams for me, Melbourne and Sydney, and that goes. United has the pedigree. They've had continuity. You bring Jack White into the frame. Delhi, obviously. Ian Clark has been exceptional this year. So it's just obviously Goulding and Illy and those guys. It's just there. The continuity is something that you can't overlook, especially on the international scene. And Sydney is just. I don't understand how they got that roster under the salary cap, and I'm not accusing them of overspending, but you have definitely gotten guys to take less than they could have gotten elsewhere for a chance to win and play for Gorgon and things of that nature. There's going to be some teething along the way when you have that many talented players, and really 1 through 11 could be rotational players across the league. And Adams and Cooks, they're both MVP caliber talents, and Cam Oliver is coming off the bench, and it's just the list goes on. And Lepepe is awesome. I love him. I think what he can do is exceptional, and his willingness to buy into a role is only going to elevate him as a player. So for me, those are my top 3. And if you want to have one on the fringe of that top 3, particularly Perth, what I saw from them early was great, but they started like this last year as well, where they were a little up and down, and John really was trying to figure out what the rotations look like, and he really shortened the leash last year, and he looks like he's doing that again this year with Ben Henschel not playing much last game. So in that aspect, I certainly think that they're the start of that next tier right now for me.
All right. Well, the good news is my top 4 and your top 4 pretty much match. So I'm happy with that. My top 4 is lined up with an NBA scout. I can, happy days. I had Kings ever so slightly higher, but apart from that, our top 4s look very similar. And now we get into that sort of group in the middle, and I dare say, considering our top 4s have been fairly similar, I think the next group's probably going to be similar, and then the need to see more, possibly an uncomfortable year ahead, probably going to be very similar again, realistically.
Yeah.
But look, 3, I'd say there's probably 3 teams in the next tier.
I put 4 in the next tier.
4? Yep.
Well, assuming Perth, wherever Perth lies. Perth would be in my second tier for me, but if they're in the top 4, I'm looking with that as well.
Okay, so teams to the left, we've got Adelaide, Cairns, Jack Jumpers, the Breakers, which again, like we talked at the top, that feels like a bit of an asterisk, just 2 games in. Obviously, we've seen them at the Blitz and other things, but NBL basketball, when it's regular season, legit ones going for it is just different to preseason, and of course, NBA promotional games don't really count. And then we're a little bit deeper, but so you've got excuse me, Perth at the top of the next bracket. Who are you thinking next?
For me, it's Adelaide, and I think they're right on the fringe of breaking through that top 4. I know there's a lot of discourse around Kendrick Davis and can you win with him, and I think he's answered that criticism recently. But when I watched him at the Blitz, he's a lot of fun to watch. He's incredibly shifty. He can score it multiple ways, but kind of like what PJC does for the Breakers, he can get his without taking anybody else out of rhythm. I think that's a big thing Adelaide struggles with, particularly with Isaac Humphries, is, he goes missing, and it's not really a reflection of him. It's just there's no emphasis on getting him the ball and playing with him. And when he's playing well, I think they're as tough to beat as anybody. Mike Wells has done a really good job with that group from the start because of the bit of dysfunction and leading up to the preseason with the firing of the coach. And I think at the end of the day, they're really improving and they're trending in the right direction. And I really like their top end talent. I do question their depth, but their top end talent is very good in this league. So I have Adelaide first.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to put New Zealand next from what I've seen, and
Mm-hmm.
PJC is as dynamic as anybody in the league, and he just gets it done. And I think what the coaching staff has implemented there has been really, really good. I got to go see a couple of their practices over in Perth for Hoops Fest, and it's a machine, and it's running, and it's obviously he's Finnish, and it's a very European style, and he's going to get the most out of that group. And I think you have to look at Mojave King. He's come back from the G League as a completely different player. Like he's doesn't even look like the same person. So he's really trending in a good direction for himself and for that group. So Mooney's been great. Yeah, the list goes on. I do like them, but we just haven't seen enough of them. And then that next team for me would definitely be Cairns, and Adam Ford gets more with less than anybody across probably any sport in Australia, and he's doing it again. And Taron Armstrong is a much improved player from last year, and I think that if Taron can stay healthy, that's his big thing at the moment. They're two unfortunate injuries, but if he can stay healthy, they operate much more differently. Rob Edwards doesn't have to carry the ball so much, and more guys get involved with the shooting that they have. So that would be the next bracket for me.
Yeah, they're a different beast with Taron. Obviously, question mark is going to be that injury stuff, but they've showed over the last couple of games they're very scrappy, and they're an uncomfortable team to play, especially in somewhere like Townsville as this summer really starts to roll on. That's going to be a very difficult road trip, which of course is only going to play into their hands as well. Look, so far, again, haven't said anything that sounds too wild. I can agree thus far fairly well. That only leaves 3 teams, though. That only leaves 3 teams. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into it. Obviously, I'm going to assume, and I don't like to normally do this, but I'm going to assume you're going to have Jack Jumpers ahead of this next little group.
Yes, yeah. You can't ignore the championship win. Look, there's no doubt that losing Jack McVeigh is a huge loss for that group. He's, he filled a lot of holes. He's got versatility, shoots the ball. He's got a knack for making late game shots and big shots at that, as we know. But there is a very clear disconnect in that group at the moment, and that's something that Roth is going to have to figure out. And it's not that I'm doubting them or anything, but they have really struggled early in the season. They didn't look great at the Blitz either. So there's certainly a disconnect there, and whether it's a bit of championship hangover or I don't know, but yeah, I'd be curious to know what's going on in practices and what preseasons look like and things of that nature. But they're still light years ahead of who's left, unfortunately.
Okay, well, I do have, it's a very NBL 1 North solution to the Jack Jumpers problems thus far. And that's a young Nick Stoddard on their DP roster. Just get Stoddy on there, give him some minutes, let the boy cook. Height's clearly not a problem. You've got Jordan Crawford, like you're clearly okay with shorter guys. So just let young Stoddy cook.
I got to take the time to shout out Stoddy because he's deserved this for a few years now, and he's had the unfortunate injuries and some bad luck along the way, and there's not a person more deserving of those opportunities. So big shout out to Stoddy for that.
100%. Okay. All right. 2 teams left. One has a new coach. Obviously that decision came down during the week, during the week, I say Sunday morning, obviously with Sam McKinnon will now step into an interim role as Phoenix decide exactly which way they're going to go moving forward. From, everything I know and connections, obviously Sam McKinnon, he wants to be a head coach, obviously in this league. That's, the whole idea and goal of heading over to New Zealand and, being the Taranaki Airs head coach is to obviously come back and step into that space. But, that was not a fantastic game between the Bullets and the Phoenix that eventually ticked over and, led to I thought Bryce Cotton put it really well, that fork in the road, the final fork in the road where the team now really needs to come together and sort out whatever needs to be sorted out, get on the same page and really go. But, Phoenix got a lot to do.
Yeah, the good news for Phoenix is talent isn't necessarily their issue. Matt Hurt is excellent. I love watching him play. He just goes about his business. He's consistent. He's efficient. He can make tough shots. He gets himself easy shots. He plays the right way. I'm a big fan of his game, and glad that he's in the league. Wieskamp, I'm a big fan of him. I think at this level, he really brings a lot to a group. We know about the shooting, but he's got good length, size, athleticism. He plays hard, things of that. So I do like it. And obviously, Derek Walton Jr. is as good a point guard as anybody in this league. You have Sobey, who for years has been touted as one of the better Australians, part of the Rose Gold Boomers. And then, you have young talent on that group too. Like Owen Foxwell, you can't look past that. He's got a very, very bright future ahead of him. So excited to see where he can go with things. And I really
especially off the back of his NBL 1 season as well. Like
certainly.
It's really starting to show. Like we talked about Stoddy and Foxwell. There's a genuine pathway coming through now, which is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been really impressed with Malik Lewis. He's got good size, good bodies, good athlete. Still trying to figure himself out as a player, as most young players are. But last game they used him as the defensive stopper and inserted him to the starting lineup, and I thought he played pretty well. So, as a whole, like it's just now that you bring Sam in. I've gotten to know Sam a little bit over the years, and he certainly understands people. And I think it's again, I've never met Mike Kelly or anything, and I can't say, but I do know Sam understands people, and that is a good option to bring cohesion to that group because it's not a talent thing. It's definitely like when I watched the team they rolled out over the Blitz, I was like, they have a chance. So. We'll see if they can get it together there, but it's a long-standing problem for them over the past few years.
All right, well that only leaves one team. It's not the Canberra Cannons or the Newcastle Falcons or any of those teams. It's the Bang Bang Brisbane Bullets. So where do you see? Where do you see some of the issues? Why have you got Brizzy? Why do we both have Brizzy sort of down towards this end where realistically, want to see more? They're in that space where it could really be, another long season.
Yeah. So first and foremost, and I don't see enough of this being talked about in the grand scheme of things. The Sam McDaniel injury cannot be understated how big of a loss that is because I look around that roster and there's nobody to fill those shoes. And that is such an unfortunate loss. It's one thing when you lose a big time import because you just bring an import over, but when you lose a national player that's a big loss. So, and I don't see enough discourse about that, or there aren't enough people talking about how big that loss is for them. So, in the roster construction, I absolutely understand what Schuler was going for, and that front office was going for, and it's very Tasmania Jack Jumpers esque. It's let's get the right people in, and we'll figure out the pieces as we go. And personally, I'm a believer in those kind of systems. That yes, you need talent, but you need the right people in that organization. Tyrell has been awesome. Like he's continued taking steps, and I think this has been a couple years in the making. He's had the injury history, and knock on wood for Ty, but he's really developed his game, and it's slowing down. And he's been around so long that you forget he's only 25 years old or whatever he is, and if he can stay healthy, he's got a really exciting few years ahead for him. Obviously, Rocco coming off the bench, and he brings a lot of eyes to the Bullets and what they're doing, and it's a lot of pressure for a kid that age with that kind of hype, and especially what they're putting on him in the Australian media in particular. So you just got to be patient with him. He's got something you can't teach, and he's 7'2" or 7'3", whatever he is now, and he's got the soft touch. He's starting to show he can shoot the ball a little bit. So he intrigues a lot of people. There's no doubt about it. Look, I really like James Bateman. I think he's kind of gotten a bit of an unfair hook here. And this is what I say about it is, he's been productive in very, very good leagues around the world between France. I believe the other one was Israel. He's a very good player. And if he's not playing well, there's, again, a disconnect. There's something there that is lacking. Now, he came out last round, and he was excellent off the bench, and he was a lot more assertive and aggressive. So maybe he's found his stride, and that'll be big for that group. And I think Dengadell is the other guy they got to figure out how to get more out of, because he's got the talent. He's 6'6" wing, good, really long arms, scores it in a variety of ways. Kind of has that little bit of an awkward game that can kind of be difficult to cover. And he's just, hasn't given probably as much as you would have liked. He looked good at the Blitz, and now the season's around, I know he's dealing with some health issues and things of that. And obviously Josh Bannon's got to find his role as well. But I guess my concern for Brisbane is looking around that roster. Is there enough talent to climb out of the basement? Which there are just so many guys that are underperforming for a variety of reasons, and that's not always on the player. It's not always on the coach. Sometimes it just is what it is, and that's how I kind of see it with them at the moment.
Yeah, I definitely agree with like what you're saying about Sam McDaniel. I had the pleasure, of course, of watching him with the Caps, and just absolute boss, obviously at that NBL 1 level. But the way he was able to just hold himself, on the court, those big moments didn't phase. Like I was just so excited to see what he could do, and of course, unfortunately, we didn't get a whole lot of it. And what he can do defensively is just amazing.
Yeah.
And do have to give a shout out to young Rocco as well. I've had just in the last couple of weeks, he's been getting out to different training sessions and different things, like with some juniors and different programs around. That's fantastic for a young kid to, get in and around that. And, even if you want to go down that road of, he's being sent to those things, that might be the case, but he is being absolutely amazing to those juniors and those kids when he's there. Like, he's giving his time freely. I'm sure you saw it at the Blitz like I did. He was a bit swamped at times, for signatures and all that kind of stuff. And, happily and freely gave his time for a kid of, who's still so young.
Yep.
That is a lot of pressure, and hopefully he can get through a really positive season. And look, sky's the limit. Maybe, heck, maybe we see him with, running around with Luca in a couple of years or something like that.
Yeah.
You never know. You never know. But all right, mate. That's broken down the contenders, the problems, and we need to see some more. So hopefully we see some more positive, and things shorten up in that NBL space, which they so often do. Pretty much every year there's a team that starts off really slow and really makes that rise towards the top. So, all right, mate. If you got time, are you up for a round of Who's That Teammate?
Yeah, hopefully.
Let's do it. All right. So we've got the way it works. I've got 3 clues. The first one's a little bit tough. Second one's a little bit easier. And then the third one, it's designed to be a little bit more of a gimme, but, can still be tricky. All right. First one straight off the bat. First clue. First player. Last season, this was their stat line, 21, 2, and 6. 21, 2, and 6. It's totally okay to pass and get the next clue if you like. Yes, sir. 21, 2, and then 6.
Yeah, I'm gonna need
second clue.
Yeah.
Not a problem. This might be actually a little bit more of a gimme. I'm going to go sunglasses.
See, I was thinking 2 rebounds. Yeah, okay, Kawhi. Yeah, because Kawhi was the one that came to mind, but I was like, we get more than 2 rebounds. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Right. Yep. Nailed it. Kawhi. I had MVP as the real gimme. Yeah. If you couldn't get it done, MVP was there.
You're gonna be mad right away.
And look, the fourth one would have been sunglasses and MVP, of course, when he rocked up wearing the sunglasses to collect the MVP trophy. Just classic Kawhi. All right. Next player. What have we got? Range and handles. Range and handles. First clue.
I'm going to go with Izzy Tueta. Right off the bat.
Don't need more.
I know my guys.
Don't need more. All right. Player 3. Too easy. Okay, player 3. I'm going to just walk you through a highlight of his from, I think it was 2 seasons ago. Fakes left, explodes right.
Wait, hold on. Let me ask. Is it Red City?
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
No. So this player faked left, exploded right, threw the key, dropped the hammer. That was the highlight that went around the league. Everyone was watching.
The good thing about playing at Rip City is we didn't have a ton of high-rise athletes, right? So this one's got to be Verl. It's got to be. Yeah.
Too easy.
What a time.
All right. One last teammate. Now, this might be a tricky one, but you really need to get this one right.
All right.
Okay. All right. 3x3. 3x3. That's all I'm going to give you.
For the sake of my well-being at home, I'm going to go with Carly.
All right. You nailed it. Because I had 16, 2, and 12 next, and then to really ram it home, had the birth date. Like you had to nail it by that point. So don't worry. It was a tester, but with some safety, safety nets underneath. All good. Look, nailed it. Probably one of the most. You've obliterated the game, mate. You've obliterated the game. So, yeah. Look, wowzers. Look, you've nailed that. We're going to have to do some local card shop for Woolloongabba Crackem. I've got our pack here. NBL. Topps cards. We've just got the 6 cards. The way it works, if you haven't played local card shop or Woolloongabba Crackem before, I read the back. When I get to the player's name, I just say somebody, and then we go from there. All right, and you just jump in whenever you like. You're playing against the empty chair, so just keep firing out names whenever. All good. Don't stress. And if I keep reading, well, that's probably a good sign that haven't got it yet. Growth mindset, though, yet. Okay. First card for the Tasmania Jack Jumpers. Now, this is the 2023-2024 pack of cards that released just before the start of the season. So some of these players may have moved on, but they are the most current cards. So here we go. Somebody signed with the Jack Jumpers a week after posting a 50-point game in the NBL 1. It feels like they're building something really special, he says, and I'm excited to immerse myself in the program and be a part of that. In his debut for the club on September 29, 2023, somebody supplied 5 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists in only 13 minutes of action. Now, according to this, they're a right-handed guard from the Tasmania Jack Jumpers. And I can confirm that they are no longer there, if that helps.
50.
Very few to do 50 in the end.
Yeah, that's why.
One.
That's why I'm surprised that this isn't not there anymore. I had no idea. No idea.
We've got Junior Madut. Junior Madut.
Yeah.
I'm going to pop him over there in the not this time column. This time column. All right. Oh, this one. Okay. This one I'm sure you'll be across. Somebody opened the 23-24 campaign and his Melbourne tenure with a flourish on September 28, amassing 20 points, 8 rebounds and 2 assists in an 82-67 victory over Southeast Melbourne. He's just so versatile. We just want him to continue to be aggressive. United teammate Matthew Dellavedova says, we're really excited to have him. Australian-born right-hander. Number 23 for United.
Travers.
Luke Travers it is. There we go. All right, we're on the board. We're on the board. Don't stress.
So far.
That's okay. I'm pretty sure there's some gettable cards coming. I got a feeling. All right. Somebody has averaged no worse than 14.3 points per game in any of his first 10 seasons with Melbourne. The drumbeat continued in 22-23, which he opened with a 24-point performance against New Zealand. Somebody reeled off 23 straight games with double-digit points beginning on October 20. He went for 30 against Southeast Melbourne Phoenix on November 6. A guard for Melbourne United.
It's got to be Goulding, right?
It's got to be, and it is. 2 in a row, mate. You're on fire.
All right. Got the momentum now.
Yeah. All right. For the Illawarra Hawks. This time round. All right, here we go. One of America's brightest young talents. Now, sometimes these cards do gild the lily slightly. And Trenton Flowers, the Trenton Flowers card says he's 9 years old. So sometimes the stats aren't quite right, but we'll still go with it anyway. One of America's brightest young talents. Somebody signed with the Illawarra Hawks under the NBL Next Stars program in April 2023, turning down a slew of college suitors in his home country. Hawks GM of basketball, Matt Campbell, says of the 18-year-old combo guard, he has been a seamless fit with our group, and we are excited to see him grow and develop.
AJ Johnson.
AJ Johnson. Nice, easy one. There we go. Not sure about the first opening line, but still.
Yeah.
No, still. Okay. For the New Zealand Breakers. Somebody was a driving force behind the Breakers reaching the championship series in NBL 23, averaging career high for points in 10.5, assists 6.2, and rebounds 5.1. In his fourth season in the league, the Australian international excels at delivering dimes off the dribble. He knows how to fill up the basket and is an ideal fit for pick and roll situations.
Will McDowell White.
Will McDowell White. Nailing it. Okay, I've got one card left, and it's a shiny one too. Okay. Somebody was the prestigious NBL Next Generation Award. Sorry, there's I talked about before how there's some errors on this card. This one's missing a word. All right. Somebody won, I'll throw that word in, the prestigious NBL Next Generation Award as a rookie in 2022-2023, contributing both inside and out for Cairns. The big man began to hit full stride in late October, scoring 20 points in a game against Sydney. Facing Adelaide on January 30, somebody dropped a season-high 26 points, showing off his outside touch with a trio of three-pointers. Cairns Taipans still there. Wardenberg it is. Hey, five correct, no dramas. One, well, let's ignore the one. That's more than a pass. Great job. Eric, thank you very much for joining. If people want to get a hold of you, ericmcallister.com and at Eric McAlister across all the socials, best places to find you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, mate. Thank you very much for your time this evening. It's been a pleasure. You've pretty much broken Who's That Teammate. Absolutely nailed that. Great score on Crackem. Trust me, not everyone's as good. Not everyone gets the 5-1, so don't stress that for a second. You've nailed it. Thank you for joining. Thank you for sharing. And we'll definitely have to have you back on at some point. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, no, always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, that is going to wrap up our show this evening. Big thank you, of course, to local card shop of Woolloongabba Crackem. Local card shop of Woolloongabba for supporting our Crackem segment. Get down and see Rob down there at Woolloongabba, and make sure if you ever do need a Sparky in a hurry, call Dr Electrician's part of the Trades AU group. But until you're listening to us again, just remember that ball don't lie.